A single arrow, bloody battle. And when it found its target, it didn't just kill a man, it killed an entire language. It changed surnames, laws, castles, the way you speak English today. All because of one arrow that flew for a few seconds on October 14th, 1066. In the next few minutes, you will discover how this single projectile erased Saxon England from existence and created a completely new country. And the most insane part? The man who died with that arrow in his eye was winning the battle. But before I tell you who fired that arrow, you need to understand why 3 different men believed they deserved to be King of England on that very day. January 1066, King Edward the Confessor dies with no heir, and suddenly the most powerful throne in Northern Europe is empty. 3 men say, "That throne is mine." First, Harold Godwinson, an English nobleman, an experienced warrior. He says Edward promised him the throne on his deathbed. Second, Harald Hardrada, King of Norway, a 2-meter-tall Viking who had already fought on 3 continents. He says he has an old treaty that gives him the right to the throne. Third, William, Duke of Normandy, Edward's distant cousin. He says Edward promised him the throne years earlier. And there's more. Harold had supposedly sworn loyalty to him. But here is the first twist. Only one of them is in England when the king dies, and he crowns himself immediately. Who do you think it was? And more importantly, how did the other 2 react? Harold Godwinson crowns himself king in January. He knows he will have to fight. But who first? In September, the answer arrives. Harald Hardrada invades the north of England with 300 Viking ships, 15,000 Norwegian warriors. Harold does something insane. He marches his army 300 kilometers in 4 days, an impossible speed for the time. And on September 25th, at the Battle of Stamford Bridge, he massacres the Vikings. Harald Hardrada dies. The Nordic invasion is over. Harold is a hero. His men are exhausted, but victorious. And it's at this exact moment that news arrives from the south. William of Normandy has just landed with 7,000 Norman soldiers on the coast of Sussex. But here is the question that changed everything. What do you do when your army is exhausted, 400 kilometers from the enemy? Do you rest, or do you march again? Harold makes the decision that will cost him his life. He marches, again, 400 kilometers in 1 week. His best warriors are dead in the north. The survivors can barely hold their weapons. Many desert on the way. But Harold had a plan. He knew the terrain near Hastings. There was a hill, a perfect position for defense. On October 14th, 1066, he places his army at the top of this hill, near an old apple tree. He forms a shield wall and waits. On the other side, William looks up and sees an impenetrable human wall. Norman archers, knights in armor, foot soldiers, none of it matters if he can't get up that hill. But wait, if Harold was in such a strong position, how did he lose? What happened on that hill that changed everything? 9 a.m., William orders the attack. Norman archers fire thousands of arrows up the hill. But the Saxons have giant shields. The arrows bounce off. Norman infantry runs up the hill. But climbing a hill in armor while men attack you from above, it's a nightmare. The Normans are pushed back. Then William sends in his secret weapon, heavy cavalry. Knights on war horses, charging uphill with lances. And something unbelievable happens. The horses can't break the shield wall. The Saxons hold. Somehow, these exhausted men, who marched 700 kilometers in 2 weeks, are winning. Norman warriors start to fall back. Some flee down the hill in a panic. But here is where the battle turns. What happens when undisciplined soldiers see the enemy running away? Part of the Saxon army does the unthinkable. They break formation and chase the Normans down the hill. Was it a mistake, or was it exactly what William wanted? Because some historians believe that retreat was faked, a tactic. William had seen that the Saxons wouldn't leave the hill as long as they kept their discipline. So he made them leave. The Saxons who ran down the hill were surrounded and slaughtered by the Norman cavalry. Suddenly, the shield wall had holes. The battle drags on for hours. Noon, afternoon, the sun beginning to set. Both sides are destroyed. Harold is still alive, commanding from the top of the hill. But William has one last card to play. He looks at his archers and gives a strange order. Aim up. Let the arrows fall like rain. And this is where the arrow that changed everything comes in. But did it really hit Harold in the eye? Or is that just a legend? Late afternoon. Thousands of Norman arrows fly in a high arc and fall on the Saxons like a storm of wood and iron. In the famous Bayeux tapestry, a 70-meter-long embroidered cloth made years later, there is an image of a man with an arrow in his eye. Beside it the words, "Here King Harold was killed." For centuries, people believed Harold Godwinson, the last Saxon king of England, died from a random arrow to the eye. But here's what many don't know. What happened after was much worse. When Harold fell, his personal bodyguards, the Huscarls, elite warriors, formed a circle around his body. They fought to the last man. All of them died. William ordered Harold's body to be mutilated to make sure he was dead. So disfigured that his own mother couldn't identify him. Only his mistress Edith recognized the body by marks that only she knew. And with that death, Saxon England died too. William became William the Conqueror. And he didn't just conquer the throne, he conquered everything. He replaced the entire English nobility with French Normans. He built castles all over England. He imposed Norman laws. And the language? The Old English of the Saxons began to disappear, mixing with Norman French. This is why modern English has so many French words. This is why the English build castles of stone and not wood. This is why the English legal system is different from the rest of Europe. All because of one arrow. One arrow among thousands fired that day. An arrow that by chance or fate found a royal eye. An arrow that didn't just kill a king, it killed an entire world and created another in its place. If you thought this story was insane, imagine how many other battles changed the world by chance. Leave a like, subscribe, and tell me, what historical battle do you want to see here on the channel?